Welcome to the Johnny Dell Football Academy podcast on the channel that's trying to answer the whys and hows of the game by talking through and dissecting game film and diving deeper to explain why the X's zig and the O's zag. I am Adam Marino, joined by Mr. Johnny Dell, and we are reminding you, as always, the most fun way to watch is on YouTube, where we go live. There you can comment into the live show. Be sure to hit the notification bell and turn on your notifications so you can be a part of the conversation. We also stream live on Facebook and X. Also, the audio versions are always found on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, if you are live with us in the chat, it's probably because you are subscribed, you've hit the notification bell, and turned those notifications on. So, when sharing with your friends, be sure to let them know. We also love to hear from you outside of our live show. Email us at jonnydelsfootballacademy@gmail.com, and you can always check out the website jfa49.com, as it is the most fun way to support the channel. Also, the way we boost the chat and boost the algorithm is to type out hashtag JD49. Welcome in. It is playoff football time. It is a Friday. We're in a good mood. Lots to talk about. I want to dive right in, Johnny. Just to preview, guys, we have some film. So church will be in session. So stay tuned. But I want to get into a couple things, some news around the NFL that really could affect us. This John Harbaugh nonsense, unbelievable. If you are a Baltimore fan, I know that you're all in with Lamar, but I gotta say, a pretty shady deal to just do Harbaugh like that. But what scares me is you look at that defense. They have a franchise quarterback. They have a very winnable division. Yikes, Robert Saleh. What do you think, man?
I think that is clearly the best option for Robert Saleh going forward as far as a place to go work at. I think the timing was very interesting. I'll put this together a little bit. So if people remember, Robert Saleh had a really, detailed interview with Josina Anderson. I think it was about 6 weeks ago. And she had asked him, if he wanted to be a head coach going forward, and he said, I think every coach, if you're competitive, wants to succeed at the highest levels in this league and be the one leading a team. Clearly, we've known for a long time that Robert Saleh wants another crack at being a head coach. He's a very competitive, driven guy, and he wants to be leading his team to that Lombardi. And what I think is just interesting about this, and I'm not making necessarily any accusations against Josina. She does a great job. She also had don't know if broke, but was intimating on her socials that there was a longtime NFL head coach that was most likely going to be moved on from at the end of the season. And everybody started wondering, what was that? Or that there was rumblings about maybe a desire for a change of scenery, but also that just things weren't working out. And she wouldn't disclose who it was, didn't want to give up sources, obviously. I do think that's interesting. She has an interview with Robert Saleh, knows that there's a coaching vacancy that might be coming up. And then right before John Harbaugh gets fired, Robert Saleh hires a new agency to represent him in a head coaching search. Not saying she told him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he had gotten a little tip that said, hey, be ready to go interview with the Ravens. And I hear they're interested in you, sort of a thing. Because if I'm the Ravens, I'm definitely interested. One thing that Baltimore has been historically good at when you look at the last 20 years, 25 years, is defense. And the defense was not good enough this year. It was bad in a lot of ways. And yes, they were missing a ton of guys, but when you look at what the Ravens did with a defense decimated by injuries and what the 49ers have done with a defense decimated by injuries, if I'm the Ravens, I'm saying, okay, this would be a clear step in the right direction, because even if we do get decimated by injuries again, I believe that our defensive coordinator can keep things glued together enough for our offense, what should be moving forward. And then also, I think there was an insistence, obviously the power dynamic there between John Harbaugh, Todd Monken, and Lamar Jackson was very dysfunctional. Harbaugh was very much looking at Monken and saying this he's not the problem here. There's a lot of things there. We need more from Lamar in this area, and he's got to grow in that, especially as he's starting to get up in age and he's starting to rack up some of these injuries. They need him to run less. That's really what it comes down to. They need him to deliver from the pocket more, run less. That's going to be a big challenge going forward. But it does underscore what I've always told people is people will say when you look at like the Seattle game and we give up almost 200 yards rushing and say that's on Robert Saleh. I say there's a reason why Robert Saleh is being paid approximately only $100,000 more than Yetur Gross-Matos. There's a reason coaches are not paid nearly what the players on the field are.
Yeah, the players have to do it.
Because the players have to be the ones that execute. They represent the largest investments from these teams. I mean, just think about when the 49ers fired Chip Kelly. That was a big time fire because he was one of the highest paid head coaches at the time. And they fired him after 1 year and they were on the hook for his entire contract. It was $24 million. And people go, wow, that is an owner that is really willing to get the right coach in here and eat all that money. And I go, yeah, but the 49ers this year are going to be they traded Deebo Samuel for the same kind literally Deebo Samuel was the same kind of dead money cap hit. Like it was a similar situation. They were literally had Deebo's money on the books at almost $24 million for him to go play for the Commanders. That's one player, and we did that to the tune of $100 million in dead cap. So like this kind of stuff happens with players all the time where there's 20, 24, $30 million in dead cap and monies that have been already paid for services not rendered to a team. So like when you have a situation like that, coaches do not represent the bulk of the problem. And I think that's where John Harbaugh was. Robert Saleh will be stepping into a situation where they obviously want to lead with defense if he goes there. I think if it happens, it needs to happen quickly. The 49ers need an opportunity to bring Jim Schwartz in.
Yeah.
He's still out there. Jeff Ulbrich is most likely off the table. He had the Cowboys put in a defensive coordinator interview request to the Falcons for Jeff Ulbrich, and the Falcons blocked it without a GM or head coach. That's a big deal. That means Arthur Blank really wants to keep Jeff Ulbrich in the building. And so I doubt that he's going to give the 49ers an interview option there. I know people are looking at Raheem Morris as a possible thing. If Shula gets hired away from the Rams, Raheem Morris is headed right back to the Rams. That's what's happening. He runs a different system. Back end schematically, some of the safety stuff and corner stuff is the same, but front seven is completely different than what Robert Saleh runs. So it'd be a big time personnel shift. And people say, well, is that necessarily a bad thing? Yes, because you've been spending 2 years in the draft building your defensive line and your linebackers for a certain kind of defense. And now you have to start over. And that's a big time investment. You don't necessarily want to do that. The only time that you will see a big scheme shift like that is when it is a new head coach coming in and they're looking at completely retooling the team. Those are the only times you really see those kind of systemic changes. So it's going to be a 4-man front defense of whatever they're looking at. Because outside of Jim Schwartz and with Jeff Ulbrich off the table, it's going to be Gus Bradley, most likely, who is in the building. I think Matt Eberflus might get a look, but I don't know with how the last 2, kind of years have been with him, how that's going to go.
Yeah, it's a mess. And we hate to say we want to see Robert Saleh go quickly. We don't want to see him go at all, but we do need time to help fix our D if he's got to go. So it's like, we don't want the door to hit you where the good Lord splits you. Like, we don't mean it in a mean way, but dude, if you're going to go, you got to go like tomorrow, man. Like,
Well, you don't want to end up in the same kind of unfortunate hiring cycle that you did when you brought in Steve Wilkes and you promoted Nick Sorensen. So
yeah, that was a mess.
I think Gus Bradley, if Jim Schwartz is not available by that time, I think Gus Bradley, he's been their insurance policy. I mean, clearly he was brought in to be able to keep a systemic consistency. Should the 49ers go deep and should they lose Solid near the end, that they had somebody in their back pocket who could step into that role. But if Jim Schwartz is there, clearly you go for Jim Schwartz. I think that would only make sense. Now that might mean that you lose Gus Bradley. But that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. We'll see how all these other games shake out and everything. I mean, we could have the game of our life. That's what we're going to get into. I want to hear a little bit about what you think about the Eagles and what they do. I have heard a rumor that they will have, and chat or Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong, 21 of 22 available starters will be ready to go. Can I be the first to say yikes a little bit?
Well, I mean, that's generally been the Eagles. They tend to be a very healthy team. There was a reason why Ted Rath got hired from the Eagles training staff to be the head of the New Orleans Saints training staff. Because New Orleans moved on from, it was Matt Rule as their no, it wasn't Matt Rule. It was trying to remember his name. Anyways, he had been with Alabama before, head of strength and training. He had gone to the Saints. They had their in 2024, they were actually even more injured than the 49ers were in 2024. And after Kellen Moore came in, he looked at it and he said he had been with the Eagles. And he was like, no, these are preventable. Like there are ways to go about things that you don't have these many injuries. And so he fired his guy, and then he went and hired Ted Rath, who had been with the Eagles on their staff, and he hired him as the head of their training staff. And the Saints had a huge turnaround in injuries this year. So the Eagles, Philadelphia, they know how to keep guys healthy. They have good training methods. They implement them. They like whatever they're doing, we need to look at hard. Like, it is time for Dustin Perry to go and bring in somebody from the Eagles staff. Like, you need to bring in somebody from there and bring their methods and their philosophy to you, because the 49ers are, they train and plan to be a physical run team. Well, that's causing a lot of soft tissue injuries. There's no doubt about it at this point. They are lower in a rate of contact injuries. So that shows that it's preventing the hard contact, physical contact injuries. They have a lower rate of that compared to the rest of the league. They have a much higher rate of soft tissue, to the tune of 10 to 15% higher rate of soft tissue than league average around the league. So there's clearly something wrong there. You need to bring this person in. It doesn't matter if you have these great players and they're so explosive and they all this stuff, if they cannot get on the field. Jacob Cowing just had his practice window open to practice for the first time outside of training camp this year because of a hamstring injury. Apparently he re-aggravated that hamstring at least 4 times. That's not okay. The 49ers have had something like 16 or 17 hamstring injuries this year. When you add in Jacob Cowing's multiple hamstring injuries, the average is 5.3 per season per NFL team. Like, you are clearly doing something wrong. When you have 3 times the amount of hamstring injuries as what you should expect, there's a problem there. I mean, Trent Williams, why is he in doubt for this game? A hamstring injury. Like, why did George Kittle miss 5 games? A hamstring injury. Why did Bryce Huff miss 2 games and has been slow ever since? A hamstring injury. Yetur Gross-Matos, why did he miss games and he's been slow ever since? A hamstring injury. Like, this is something. So yeah, they have their practice report looks a lot better than ours. You see it. They had 2 guys that didn't participate and one of them was not injury related. It was a vet day. So, their most recent practice report, and that's Landon Dickerson. So which is kind of wild because he's like a third-year player. It's been more like maintaining an injury, giving him an extra day of rest. But other than that, that's their guard Brett Toth is in the concussion protocol. Outside of that, it's limited or full participants. Lane Johnson was a limited participant. He's most likely going to play, even coming back from a Lafranc injury, which is usually season ending. They've managed to get him there. Whereas the 49ers, we have Luke Gifford, Ricky Pearsall, Keon White, and D. Winters did not participate at all. I will be real surprised if D. Winters gets out on the field. He's got a pretty rough ankle sprain. This is very similar to what George Kittle was dealing with his. And he didn't play after his against the Bears. So there's that. You got Keon White with a groin and hamstring injuries. The guy was traded to the 49ers, was healthy all season, and then has had both groin and hamstring injuries. Groin and hamstrings are seen as the most preventable injuries with proper training methods, and the 49ers regularly lead the league in groin and hamstring injuries. What did Tatum Bethune just get shut down for? A complete groin tear. Connor Colby had a pulled groin early in the year. So Keon White's here, groin and hamstring injuries. That just tends to be 49ers you come to the 49ers and you get groin and hamstring injuries. Ricky Pearsall still not participating. That PCL has been bothering him all season. Kid just, cannot get on the field. And against this Fangio defense, it's going to be real tough because they're a good defense. I know for some reason people are trying to downplay their defense like it isn't as good as it is. The Eagles offense has been putrid the last 4 weeks. Actually, they've been putrid most of the year. And that Fangio defense has been tough to go against. Since October 9th, they have not given up more than 24 points in a single game. And they've only given up 24 3 times. One of those was against the Commanders when they were the Eagles were resting all their starters and punting away the possibility of the 2 seed. Like the other 2 games, it was against the Bears. And then I think it was trying to remember who it was because I looked over the schedule. It was somebody else. So they held that Bears offense that we saw was so tough for us to hold. They held them to 24 points, and with their offense not doing much. They're a tough defense. I put on their tape this week. Watch their game against the Bills. Watch their game against the Chargers. We're going to look at a bunch of the stuff from the Chargers today. They're a tough defense. People will say, well, who have they played? They played the Raiders. Yeah, they shut out the Raiders, but they also held the Bills to a very low scoring number. They held the Chargers the Chargers were struggling in that game. And now there were some cracks in that defense that you can attack, but Vic does a great job. And it's going to be a really interesting thing to watch early in the game. How does Vic try and take away Christian McCaffrey, and what matchup is he willing to live with there?
Especially on third down.
Well, I don't actually know. It's not especially on third down. It's going to be especially on first down. I want to see. There's going to be a really interesting question and answer session between Kyle and Vic. You're going to see Kyle line McCaffrey up under center, and he's going to watch what does he come with? Where is he willing to go with his safeties here? You're going to watch him put him in shotgun. You're going to see him have that little bump motion. You're going to see him out as the number 1. You're going to see him as the number 2, and you're going to see him as the number 3. I think in the first 15 plays, you're going to see McCaffrey in those different spots because what they want to see is how are they accounting for him? Because, and I will say, it was very timely. Brett Coleman, go watch his video. He just dropped a video. It was how do you take away a team's, or how do you just not let this guy beat you? He dropped a video. His most recent video is really well done. He goes really deep into the Fangio bracket zones, and he does a great job going through it. Because I was going through all the Fangio folder I have scheme wise, trying to refresh everything on Fangio, and the way he was able to succinctly explain everything in there and visually really, really valuable. But Fangio has a lot of checks in their defense to where if he wants to take away one guy, they're going to play certain coverages. If he's out at number one, it's going to be a half to that side. It's going to be a half safe field safety or cover two to that side. If the guy's in at number two, a lot of times it's going to be quarters. If it's number three, it might go back to half and change how they're going to keep eyes on him. They sometimes will then run tricks to that side so they can double from the opposite field safety. So it might stay in cover four, but they run tricks. That means you're going to have man on the backside. So they're going to align McCaffrey in these different spots to say, what kind of checks is Vic running against McCaffrey when he's out at number one, when he's out at number two, when he's out at number three? Is there any spot that we can put him in that Vic's not going to try and bracket him in zone? And in those spots, then how do we attack what he's going to do? How does that open up possibilities in the run game of putting McCaffrey out here, motioning in, or keeping him in and then motioning him out? How do we force their checks and challenge their communication, challenge their eye discipline? There's going to be a lot of that going on. It means that one, your offense has to be able to at least run the ball on some early downs at the beginning of the game so that you can get a couple series to work through that data that you're going to try and harvest from Vic. But it also means your defense is going to have to get a couple stops there in the first three series, because I don't see this as just one where we're going to be able to come out and go down and score 2 touchdowns in the first 3 drives. I don't see it being that kind of a game.
Let's check in real quick with Cayman's Island Podcast. Thank you for the super chat. What's up, dude? Not to look too far ahead, but he's going to do it anyway. But I don't, which is fine. But I don't have a good feeling about this weekend. We are most likely trading Mac. I don't think he stays. Can we get Spencer Rattler?
Yeah, I mean, I've often compared Spencer to Brock in a lot of ways. The way he plays is very similar. It reminds you in a lot of ways of Brock Purdy. Very similar stature. I don't think so, because I don't think the Saints are going to be willing to walk away. The only reason Spencer Rattler got benched was because they really, really, really liked Tyler Shugg. And they had invested a lot in him. And Kellen Moore clearly has hitched his wagon to Tyler Shugg. Remember, Spencer Rattler was a holdover. And so
right.
Kellen Moore did not draft him. He doesn't have any loyalty towards him, but Spencer did play well enough that you don't want to let a guy who you think you probably could win a couple more games with if you had a better defense. Their defense was terrible this year. And you're going to build this team that you could probably win games with, especially when almost every NFL team has had to use their backup quarterback in the season. So I don't think Spencer Rattler's going to be the reclamation project or number 2 that you're looking at. Remember, they have Curtis Rourke that they stashed as a redshirt year this year. That I think they were planning on him being quarterback number 2 as a developmental guy behind, because I think they figured they really honestly only had 1 year with Mac, unless Brock played the entire season and Mac was never exposed. And but even then, preseason was going to happen, and I think, he's the guy I think they want to keep. Now, if working with him in the 3 weeks on field that they got this year, they're still uncertain. It does make it interesting of who might be their quarterback reclamation project going forward. I think Zach Wilson makes some sense. As far as dude has got a lot of talent. He needs to be in a situation where he's legitimately taught how to play quarterback. And if you're going to go anywhere to learn how to do that, you learn next to Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. Those guys are going to show you how it's done.
You look at Kyle Shanahan for a second. I will give props. The chat may just destroy me. I will give a 1% props to Colin Cowherd. Yep, here we go. Because he said, you look at Kyle Shanahan. Let's look at this. Okay, he took Matt Schaub to a Pro Bowl. He made
4,000-yard passer.
He
Now
made Matt
now
Ryan
also
the
understand.
MVP.
Now also let's also back up for a second and understand Matt Schaub had Andre Johnson,
But
prime Andre Johnson.
there's plenty of prime receivers who have had quarterbacks who have not made the Pro Bowl and not have 4,000 seasons. Like, it's still, I still do give a lot of credit and agree with Colin that was Shanahan was a big piece
No,
of that.
I'm not saying it's not. I'm saying when you have Shanahan and you have Andre Johnson, that
Yeah,
does make life a lot easier on a
it
quarterback.
does.
And it
Like,
doesn't
you have
mean
Julio
and
Jones in Atlanta.
right. And yes, Kyle gets a lot of credit for that. It also, it makes Kyle's job a little bit easier too. And remember, it wasn't just Kyle too. It was Gary Kubiak that was there. Kyle, yes, was the offensive coordinator, but Gary Kubiak had a lot of involvement. And Gary Kubiak's, he had a pretty good
He has a pretty good run.
pretty good resume
Yeah.
of who he'd coached coming into that point. Remember, Gary was Steve Young's quarterback coach. He was
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
John Elway's quarterback coach. So
He
he'd
did some
had
things,
he knew a little bit himself.
and he had some
Um,
talent. But
and
look, he took Matt
again, you go
Ryan.
back to Matt Ryan, but also understand Matt Ryan, the Falcons. It wasn't like Matt Ryan wasn't a talented guy at that point. The Falcons were regularly in the top 5 in the NFL in passing attempts per season. It's interesting because when you look at what Kyle did, it wasn't as much what he did in the passing game with the Falcons. Yes, Matt Ryan was throwing for all these yards and he had all those
And
touchdowns.
Julio Jones
He
helped.
did have prime Julio Jones, but that was the first time in Matt Ryan's career that the Falcons were not top 5. They weren't even top 20 in passing attempts on the season. The year Matt Ryan won MVP, they were 26th in the NFL in passing attempts. What Kyle Shanahan did was he took that team and he brought a running game. And you mix a running game with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, and yes, you had an MVP year. And so, as much as we talk about what he does with quarterbacks, it's what he brings in the run game and tying an offense together. It's not just he's able to teach quarterbacks to do this or teach quarterbacks to do that. He's not always asking, just making life insanely easy for a quarterback. It's that he opens up lanes with the run game and tying it together and in-game adjustments of tying it together to where you can get some explosive plays in the passing game. We haven't had that this year, and that should, I guess, more inform us of how well Brock Purdy has been playing this year. This is not just Kyle scheming up everything. This will be one of their bigger challenges of the year, though, coming against this Philly team.
The Philly defense. The one thing about the matchup, and I mentioned this a little bit. What I still am intrigued about third down, because if it wasn't for the Seattle game that we just played, in which we were not as good on third down, we would be over 50% on third down for the year. We're at 49 point something. And that, to me, with all that's gone on, that is incredible and speaks to Shanahan and all of the guys, really just the focus you got to have on third down to get the job done. And Philly does not get off the field on third down. And so
No,
I'm wondering.
and so some of that is that they haven't been able to generate the kind of pressure they did in the past with their front four. Jalen Carter's been in and out of the lineup. Remember, they had to go trade for Jalen Phillips
He's a game
to
changer.
try and bring some more juice to that pass rush. I'm seeing more schemed pressures from Fangio this year than I've seen in a while on third down. It's a very different look on third down to what they were. Now, also some of it is that they're giving up a little bit more production on first down. But that doesn't mean that this defense is still just giving up a lot of points. One thing Fangio does, as well as anybody else in this league, is he consistently protects his safeties from poor angles so that they are properly leveraged against deep routes, against what teams like to do on their deep routes, who they send deep. And this also speaks to, when you look at the development of Kyle Shanahan and his offense, what Vic Fangio has done and how people have tried to copy what Vic does, has directly influenced how Kyle has gone about his offense. So what do I mean by that? When a team's setting up their defensive game plan, what they're going to look at is they're going to say, okay, who runs this team's deep routes? Who runs their routes 20 yards deep down the field? And so what we're going to do is we're going to structure everything. We're going to figure out who those one or two guys are. Do they like to put them on the strong side? Do they like to put them on the weak side? And they're going to say, we're going to structure our defense so that our safety is either in or out, and he's properly leveraged based upon where this guy lines up. So they will have checks in their defense of, okay, certain guy, our scouting report says, for example, when you're playing the 49ers in 2023, our scouting report says Brandon Ayuk is going to, when he lines up in from the numbers are inside, he's going to run a route 15 yards deep, mostly between the numbers and inside most times. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a lot of cover 4. We're going to have our inside safety stay inside him and pick him up on a deep route. That's how we're going to structure. If he's there, we're going to run cover 4. If he goes outside, we're going to run cover 2 because we know he's most likely going to be on a deep in-breaker bender. So that's how they're going to look at that kind of stuff. And so you keeps your guys properly leveraged. And you say, okay, and we can be in cover 2 because we know that inside guy is going to run a vertical. We can keep our safety right inside to protect the inside. And then he's got to be leveraged again against a fade on the outside. And that's a really tough throw. And that's going to be a foot race at that point. And so here's a scouting report on that guy's speed, who runs those clearing routes to our safeties. You know how much depth you got to have against them, how much room you've got to have to take off and run. Well, all of that makes it really hard to hit explosives on Fangio's defense. So you've got to work your way down the field against them. And so now you've got to execute in the red zone where they have good tackling safeties. And that makes it really tough. Well, in that, circling back to what Kyle Shanahan has done, is that you can't necessarily have that scouting report on the 49ers that this guy is going to always be the one running clearing routes. Is if you put that on film, and Kyle knows this, then teams are they're going to be reading that all the way. That was one of the issues that we had with MVS and why he ended up being cut. Dude is only running clearing routes, and everybody knew it. And so they didn't worry about being out leveraged against him. They were just going to jump on these crossers, and it made life really tough. So you cut MVS and you let him go because he didn't really actually know the 49ers route tree. He only knew some clearing routes, and he goes to Pittsburgh, and there he'd played in the same systems that Aaron Rodgers is doing. So
he's like a guy over there. Yeah, he's a guy over there. Like,
and so it's like what Kyle does is anybody at any time can run these routes. I mean, as much as I get irritated with sometimes running use check on a corner route, that's why you do those things, is because teams can't clue in on, okay, jersey number this, we're going to be leveraged this way and this coverage on this over that. It gives you some more options that way. So this is going to be, as when you look at schemed football, this is going to be as high level of two chess masters and scheme guys going against each other with Kyle and Vic. It's going to be a tough matchup, and it'd be a really interesting one.
I'm not saying like we're not there yet for like your overall score prediction and things like that. I know you want to go over some film, but I'm curious, having said that, what are your thoughts on, what does your gut say? And then let's get into some film.
My gut says it's going to be a really tough matchup. That the 49ers' only real chance is this to be a low scoring affair, and I think it's going to come down to whose kickers don't miss a field goal. It's going to be a windy day. I mean, you feel pretty good about that with Eddie Pinheiro, but at some point Eddie's going to miss something this year. I mean, you can't go. I don't think there's ever been a kicker that has been perfect on the entire. Now Eddie's got one miss, and it was that.
Hey, I was there.
The doink heard around the world. But I do think it's going to come down to that. I think it's going to come down to who plays soccer better. Because both these offenses struggle consistently executing down the field and scoring points, or scoring touchdowns. And it's going to come down to, but you're going to be able to move the ball on both these defenses if you really, really committed to just doing that and not trying to hit explosives. So it'd be interesting.
Let's church is in session, guys. So a little silence would be appreciated. Give some reverence to Johnny. I say
So
that
I know I don't do a lot of film stuff, but it's at the end of the year. We're gonna get demonetized on this real quick here. But we're gonna show it anyways because it's the playoffs, so we all got to step up and give a little. Here we're gonna look at a lot of first downs. So here you see it's down 1. This is against the Chargers. What I'm seeing from Vic this season, more than maybe any other season, is Vic is running a lot of too high presentation pre-snap, and what he's doing is he's running what he calls cover 9. So that is going to be a weak side rotation of cover 3. So what that means is, cover 3, you have a middle field safety who's playing deep third zone, and you're going to have deep thirds on the outside, and then you're going to have 4 underneath zones. And Vic is doing this a lot on first down. When I watch the Bills, this happened a lot. So notice here, you're going to see the Chargers motion across into a 4 strong look. So they're in a 4-by-1. You're going to see they're going to move this over. They're communicating out. No, you gotta bump back. You got to bump back. This is yours. These are your zones. You're going to have these safeties are communicating this out of how we're going to do this. And you see, this is Epps. He's going to come down now because he's getting ready to trigger from a 10-yard landmark, and he's got to fill this backside B gap. That's where he's going to be if they run the ball. So that is one of the coverage clues you're getting here. But you see he's come down into that landmark, and he's just a little bit farther back than Blankenship because what they're going to do is they're going to drop Blankenship out to that deep third, and they want to come with a weak side rotation of a safety in this cover 3. And so here it is. Here's Epps coming down as this weak side rotation. So what this means is you do have possibilities when this happens. They're keeping 3 receivers out here. So that means that that's Zach Bond, I believe, over there, that he's got to stay backside for this potential 3 set over here on a bubble screen. When you do this, that means you're able to try and take on safeties with your linemen, and I'll show it from the end zone. This gives you an opportunity against their 3 techniques to run weak side. But you've got to be ready. This running back has got to be ready. This has got to be Christian McCaffrey to cut this thing back up inside with urgency. These windows will be there for a second, or for a split second, but your running backs have got to be ready with their film study for these cutback lanes. You see it right there. It was there for a split second, but then this end is going to crash that down. So you've got to be ready for that cutback lane, hit it with conviction, and go after it. I see a lot of weak side rotation cover 3, or what Vic calls cover 9. Okay, and why does that really matter? Well, out here you got a 3 technique. That's outside shoulder of the guard. What they're doing a lot of times, because so many teams like us run these wide zones, what they like to do is have this 3 technique start out as a 3, and then they want him with the ability to move on his feet to run with that. So they like to slant him over here into a 2-eye technique. And so they bring down this safety to account for that gap. That's what Vic's doing a lot this year. And it's going to be an interesting challenge of, okay, how do we go against this if they're doing that? And you can see the defensive tackle was a little slow on the weak side attack of the run. This left guard from the Chargers got to be a lot better than this. These guys have got to work this combo a lot better. He's ending up going to be able to split them, and you don't want that. You've got to have a hard commitment here. If you either get your head around, and this guy's got to move up, and then you're going to be able to get McCaffrey in here, or you say, we're just going to blast this guy down because this linebacker's trying to flow over the top to help with that, because he knows this defensive tackle is going to work down and then try and work down the field. So he's ready over the top. You're getting the safety to read into the B and outside. That's how they attack these. They flow really well. So that means you've got to be ready to cut these back as a running back. It's going to be there. if you can get these looks, this is where the running back's got to read this out. Really, eyes have got to be on the linebacker, and you've got to shoot this thing up. If he's attacking, normally the read is here. I think you got to set your read on the second level. And if he's on the second level, you shoot this thing up and it's there if you're ready for it. But if you're going to end up pressing this too hard, stopping your feet, they got a backside defensive edge player that's going to come down and make life real tough. So that is what we have here. Again, first down. This is against the Chargers. You're going to see this same sort of thing. They show this split safety presentation. You're going to see a late rotation down. Here it comes. Okay. Here it's coming down. They're going to run this as a matching cover 3. And this is, again, where you have some opportunities. I got to make sure I pull up my notes here so I never get confused. I know what play this is, but I got to make sure I know what's coming next. Is what the Chargers are going to do, and Greg Roman's going to do, is they're going to say, we're going to send this tight end in motion. Now, this guy's got to block with a lot more conviction. He's going to come across and try and kick out. We're going to run the split zone. So you're going to make it look like you're attacking on a wide zone and then come back weak side. And why you can attack that when they're running this man match cover 3 is these two guys have got to sort out how these receivers are going to release to who picks up who. And so you're going to end up attacking, and then now you can get blocking and move up if you can attack it. Again, you get the linebacker attacking, you get these guys have to man match, and now weak side is available, and you've got that to go hit a good explosive run. That's how you get the run game working against this Philadelphia front. It's not going to be easy, but why I say this guy's going to work with more conviction, watch this tight end on this block. He's like, and then he goes and he never blocks anybody. So, that's going to be George Kittle. I believe he's going to block with a lot more conviction and a lot more ability, but it is there. You've got to then work with misdirection to get these guys flowing strong side. And then you can go attack weak side, where again, in this cover 9, a lot of times that weak side safety has to also be ready to match anything on a receiver outside or detached from the formation. So if you have a number 2 that's detached, you're going to get these kind of lanes. You can, if Vic is running a lot of cover 9 first down, that's going to be interesting to watch. Watch for these moments when you're watching this game. Okay, look for right at the snap. Don't watch the ball. Don't watch where everything's going. Watch, does a safety come down into the screen at the snap? That's going to tell you if Vic's playing a lot of cover 9 on first downs. The reason why Vic plays a lot of cover 9 on first downs, and actually, Brett, if you're watching the show, Brett Coleman, don't hate me for this, but great video, is, and I mentioned it with Brett. We just had a real quick back and forth this morning. He said Vic's running this a lot because he wants to close the post on first down. That a lot of teams are trying to run this play action and hit the post route on first down. So he's looking to close that. It will be interesting to see, is Vic not scared of a post from us on first down? Does he run more of a quarters look and use that to try and bracket McCaffrey in the passing game? That's going to be that's where you're going to try and see this question and answer session early in the game of how does Kyle attack Vic on this, and how does Vic try and not allow Kyle to attack him. So here again against the Chargers, and I'm pulling it all from the Chargers because it was the game I was working through this morning. But I watched a lot of the of Vic this year, and this is what I'm seeing against a lot of teams. You're going to see they change the strength here. At right before the snap, they go to a balanced set, but you can see it. Wide receivers in close, wide receiver detached. So what they're going to do is they're going to declare this as the strong side. So you're going to have a strong side deep third, and then you're going to have that weak side rotation of the safety to bring it down. And watch, this is Reed Blankenship. Watch his trigger on this run play. He will trigger real quick. I mean, he's boom, shooting it down. That's why they play this, so that those safeties can have a quick trigger against the run. And so here you have the deeper safety. He's then going to work backside, but it allows this flow all the way across the board to fill up run lanes. And there's really nowhere for the running back to go, and they get in. The Chargers get a holding penalty on this play. They love to do this. They love to have Reed Blankenship as the safety that is coming in a weak side rotation. So there's going to be a lot of shifts and motions to try and, I think, dictate who will be the weak side rotation. I think they want Epps to be the guy who's going to come down into the box. If I'm Kyle and I'm his staff, I'm saying Epps is probably the guy that we're gonna want down in the box to try and fill on these plays. And he's the better tackler. I think he's a more physical tackler, and that's who they're going to try and get Blankenship down. That's who the Eagles want. And so if I'm the 49ers, I say, okay, do what we got to do. Let's work on our game plan this week to make sure that Epps is the guy who's coming down to fill. If the Eagles say, we're gonna make it to where Blankenship is the one who's filling, that's where you're trying to get McCaffrey matched up on him in the flats and in these areas. When they're bringing these weak side rotations, you want McCaffrey out here matched up on Reed Blankenship. That's your goal out of these plays. You can see it again here. They're coming with this 2D presentation. Right. Sorry, I added another one in there. So the question is, how do you defeat this weak side rotation? So here you're going to get Philadelphia is in where Epps is coming down. Blankenship is dropping out. You've got to defeat it with the quick passing game. That is your way to defeat that's like the weakness of Fangio's base down defenses is the quick passing game. Oh, you can go back to the 49ers during the Harbaugh era. Everybody would get really frustrated because we would give up easy 4, 5, 6 yard passes all the time. It's because the one place Vic's going to give you is the quick passing game, because then he's going to look to trap it as you go. So you can't lean on it too much, but you use it to keep you on schedule. So you can keep your run. You can stay in your run game on second down. And so, and then the next first down, you can run the ball. And then you have to stay ahead of Vic on these, because he will trap you at some point. Here's how they're going to go about beating this. The Chargers are, and Greg Roman, they're going to run a play we run all the time, a little spot concept or snag concept. So you're going to get a corner route here. You're going to get a little spot route, and then you're going to get a flat route. So this is a quick passing play. We run this play a lot, and you're going to see how this stresses this weak side rotation cover 3. So you can see Herbert's already in his throwing motion, because to keep your run alignment, you got a linebacker who's staying right over the ball. They're trying to show almost a man coverage look here, but at the snap, you're going to get this come out. The linebacker's got to fly out on that. The linebacker here has to first carry the seam, because that's one thing they do to prevent explosives on these. He's got to carry the seam for a few steps before this guy, he's going to pass him off. So that gives you an opportunity for this spot route, snag route, to sit down, because this corner has, once the number 1 comes inside, this corner is going to work to retreat and get outside the numbers, just outside the numbers, and pick up anything deep. So you will have opportunities for plays like this if you can push the seams vertical and then hit, and then inside out that curl flat guy. And it's going to be more to the strong side is where you have an ability to do that. So that's where you're going to isolate their linebackers. You see this guy's flying out. There it is. You see he has to respect the seam. You see the corner is seeing an inside from number 1, so he's getting ready to back out. That's Quinyon Mitchell. And so you have a receiver here. That's where you want to get George Kittle, Juwan Jennings, Kendrick Bourne. Those are the guys in those areas that you're going to look to hit on these quick hitters. And great anticipation throw by Justin Herbert.
Pretty good quarterback over there.
And you get 6 yards. You get 6 yards.
You'll take it.
You will take that against this. You work the quick passing game to keep you on schedule, to keep you moving the ball. That is your best. Those are your best options against a Vic Fangio defense. You've got to attack either by misdirection or straight at it. The weak side rotation safety of their cover 9, which is weak side cover 3. And then the strong side with the quick passing game. Those are the two areas that you've got to build a very robust game plan around. Now, that means you do have to hit them like strong side with your wide zones. You can't just go everything misdirection, but I do expect early in the game to see more of what looks like an inside run game. It's going to be more about misdirection to go back out to a weak side rotation. I expect to see them move McCaffrey around to see where do they put him in there and everything. So that's a little bit of a film breakdown on what to expect and how you attack Fangio on first down. This is going to be a really important game about first down. That's huge in this game.
Yeah, and I again love whenever you throw film up. Um, there's not many comments, and of course we had a banger. As far as comments go, this was a banger because of who it was from. John Chapman, a friend not only of the show,
Great
but
friend of the show. I will say thank you, John, for all you do for the 49ers community.
No kidding. Like, good Lord.
My goodness. I mean, you talk about put the community in community.
Yeah.
For real. Love what John does. He's a beast with his content, man. He's popping every day. He's going at it. He's attacking it. Does a great job with his members website. He's got lots of exclusive content for his members. Big props to Mr. Chapman there.
Yep, goes on the road. Just amazing. So thanks for that super chat. And yeah, we are your humble servants in the faithful. But I love how there really wasn't many comments while because it's like people are just like glued in, and I love it. That's why I joke and say like, hey, we're doing church, like show some reverence. Like, I say that in jest, meaning that it's a big deal when you break down the film, and this is the whole entire reason for the channel. So yeah, appreciate you, man, John. So fun to have you in with us. We got to get you on the show. We'll DM you. We'll hop in those DMs and get you back on.
Slide into his DMs.
Slide in, yeah. All right. So, what do you think, man? Are you guys ready for score predictions? We already got an early one from Caymans. I didn't even want to bring it up because it was so bad,
bro. No,
we
ain't
terrible.
We ain't posting terrible. That on the. We ain't putting along.
Yeah. That's terrible right there, man. That is
I'm not doing that.
Terrible.
I will say this is a really interesting matchup because I was texting a good friend of mine who's an Eagles fan this week, and I was like, well, I feel bad that you're going to end our season, and it's going to because I don't feel good about this matchup. I really don't. And he texted me back and was like, dude, we're going to lose. Like our offense is so bad. And
that's our saving grace. That would be.
And he was just like, and Nick's an idiot for resting our guys last week. Like, Eagles fans have very little confidence in their team right now. Like, this is a game where I think the fans on both sides are at an all-time low of confidence level for their team.
Eeyore versus Eeyore.
I'm not seeing it. Maybe it was just because like 2 years or 3 years ago, I blocked so many Eagles fans during that NFC Championship game. I have not seen the classic bombastic Eagles fans who are like, we're gonna wreck little midget Purdy. They get so cantankerous and difficult.
Well,
to say
Lenore snapped that out of him. Diamador Lenore snapped that one hit in the fourth quarter single-handedly.
Well, no, it wasn't just that hit. I mean, straight that was domination, belt to booty was that game.
But I'm saying that was the exclamation point that really like made their lips get sealed. Like, is like that was such a statement because Lenore wasn't the hyena, like technically yet, right? Like he wasn't the guy,
right?
He wasn't looked at.
I guess my point is, by the time that came around, the Eagles had already lost that game. Like,
yes.
So
that was just the exclamation point, and stay down and stay shut up. Like, shut up the entire game because of what we did to you. But now watch this for good measure. You're looking back up as you're down on the ground. Boom. Nope. Stay down and don't say anything. That is more like the
Well,
feel of
yeah,
it.
but at the same point, this is an Eagles team that just came off winning the Super Bowl, and you would expect their fans and with the season the
True.
49ers had, you expect their fans to be just talking all sorts of garbage,
Yeah.
especially because, they were dealing with a lot of defensive woes that year with Sean Desai and Matt Patricia and the weird dynamic that was there. Desai had play calling duties stripped of him, and Patricia was giving play calling duties, and it was just a weird situation that year that pretty much did like put their season in a coffin. Um and the 49ers were dressed in all black for that. They knew that they were going to come in and expose and end the Eagles season. We were really confident going into that game. But since then, you would expect the Eagles fans to be even more like, this is going to be our revenge game from 2023, and it's not that way. Like, neither team's fans really feel confident about their team. Like, the Eagles fans do not feel confident that going into the playoffs, the Eagles are going to beat the Seahawks. They're going to beat the Rams. They would beat the Bears, a second time with the way that their offense has been playing. And being January football, they are not confident in this at all, and it shows. So, like, this is a fascinating matchup because neither fan base feels confident that their team's going to win. The 49ers are like, we're not confident because, like, half of our good players are just not in this game. The Eagles are not confident because they're like, our coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball cannot figure out how, like they don't know the number for 911. Like, that's how they feel about it.
So what's your?
So my
I
prediction
said
is
24-17 Niners. It's in the chat.
I'm going to say it's going to be 19-16 49ers. I can't pick against my team in the playoffs.
Sure.
But if they win, I think it's going to be 19-16. It's going to be one of those just nail biter of a game. And you're just, if there's one thing about this defense, Eric Kendricks, from a mental standpoint, is so far ahead of where Tatum Bethune has been. He just doesn't have the closing speed. I don't see it as a huge deal of losing him. If Kendricks goes down in this game, we're screwed. Like, we are screwed. There's a pathway there, but it's a low scoring affair, and it's going to be about who doesn't make the huge mistake at some point. And I think it's going to be a game about kicking. Like, I see us maybe scoring a touchdown and 4 field goals. And our path to victory is forcing them to 3 field goals and 1 touchdown.
I hope then, if it's that close, I don't even want to speak in. I'm not even gonna say it. Never mind. Yep, field goal, we win. I'll take that because I don't want to be the guy. Well, you totally spoke it into existence. So I'm just saying we're gonna win 24-17.
John Wallace, he's confident in that. He thinks it's going to be a high scoring game.
Yeah.
With the way these offenses are playing and the way that the defenses are playing, I don't see it. Now, again, we're colored a little bit by the 49ers offensive performance against the Seahawks, only scoring 3 points. But we do have to remember that the offense for the previous 6 weeks before that was rolling. I mean, it was the best 6-week offensive performance that we have seen since the 1994 Super Bowl team. So this offense does have potential, but when you are losing a Trent Williams, that's going to be a big deal. Can you keep Trent Williams in the game? Can the offensive line play better than they did last week? They had one of their worst games of the year last week. They have got to play better. Ricky Pearsall, it would be huge to have him in this game. From a catch and run explosive kind of perspective, but it's going to be tough. Vic's going to try and really condense the throwing lanes over the middle. It's going to make it real hard. And he's going to say, your guys on the outside have got to win on some of these man match coverages on the outside. That's going to be a tough go if you don't have Ricky. Ricky can do that. Ricky can beat those. If his knee's feeling good. If not,
yeah. We'll just have to lace them up and see. Game day nachos, Johnny?
I will do what I need to do.
I will do whatever I need to do.
That's right.
For my team.
At this point in the season, I'll do what I gotta do.
So I will say,
I got an avocado in the fridge right now. It's already ready to go for guacamole.
Avocado.
Put it that way.
All right. So in my office, so many of you know I recently purchased a transportation company, party buses, limos, trolleys. And in our office, there's a back room that was gutted, and we're making it nice. We're making it like a man cave, and I did get a projector. We have a very, very clean white wall, and it is just huge. It's like one of those when you go into a huge sports bar and they have a bunch of regular TVs, but maybe they have one huge projection that everyone kind of gravitates towards, those type of restaurants. That's what we have, is like it takes up the whole wall. I did watch the college game last night. I'm gonna watch IU tonight and the rest of the playoffs. And we have two sofas. So I'll probably on Sunday, clear everyone out and just have my folks, maybe a couple Niner people, and we'll literally watch in a home setting kind of, but on a huge, huge projector. So it's gonna be fun. I'm excited.
Sounds like a good time.
We'll cross our fingers, see how it goes. In the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, go Niners.